All right. Good morning. It is time to begin. It's good to see all of you here. Good to be able to join together and finish our charting of Hebrews this morning. And then next week we'll start going into the details and really get to see the beauty of this text. Before we do that, let's begin with a word of prayer. Our wonderful Father, thank you for taking all of your wisdom and knowledge and power and creating us with such purpose, giving us value in your heart and in your creation, that we would show your glory and your manifold wisdom, not only to the rest of your creation on earth, but to all the rulers and authorities in the heavenly places. God, you have put great importance on us in our lives. And we thank you for that. We know that you are committed to the cause and that you are faithful to your promises. We have to look no further than your Son. Your Son, who is a better fulfillment of all things that was shown from early in the days of creation. That he is our great high priest. He is our mediator. He brings about a better covenant, better promises, better rest, better everything, God. And we thank you. We thank you for him and all that he has provided, and for the confirmation of your Spirit in our lives, letting us know that we can put our hope in being with you for eternity. Help us consider these things as we look into your word this morning, that we would go out bold and encouraged to speak of the great things that you have done. For you truly are the King above all kings, the Lord above all lords, God above all considered gods. You are the most wonderful Father. It's in your Son and our Savior's name that we offer this thanks. Amen. All right. So in Hebrews, we'll get my clicker working here. We finished off last week filling in all of the details through the middle of the chart. So hopefully now what you have done is taken some time this last week to see if you can come up with some groupings along the bottom of the chart. So we're looking then at this bottom line here. How do we fill in this section to now take all of these different parts and kind of group them together in a way that tells the narrative or the discussion of the book of Hebrews? So, what we'll do, what did you say, Ida? Better? just one word, better. She puts it all as one word. Great. We'll see if that works later on. This part is always probably the more difficult to do as a group setting, but if anyone has theirs that they'd be willing to talk us through just where they drew the sections and their brief summary of those sections, and then we can do a couple of those, and then I'll show 3 different versions that I have found, including my own, and that way you can see it more in a charted version. Does anyone have theirs that they'd like to talk through for us? Any brave souls? Scott gave me the I'm willing if no one else is look. So you're going to do it. What do you got?
Okay, so you want them all? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, just run us through the chart as quickly as you can.
So I broke it down with chapters 1 and 2, that it's a superior or better revelation.
Okay.
I added then the angels, then the old law.
Sure.
So being Jesus the one that brought it, he's the one to listen to. You know, how much more important is that?
Sure.
Since it's a better
So chapters 1 and
deliverer.
2, Jesus bringing about a better revelation.
Yes.
Okay.
So 3 and 4, I've got a better redeemer.
Okay.
Than Moses. I added a better promised land.
Okay, yeah.
And then, let's see, I wrote, and then so basically don't he's delivering us eternity, a better place, right? A better land. That is eternity. So don't rebel as was done.
Okay.
And guard your heart through that.
So Jesus, chapter 3 through 4, Jesus the greater Moses in Promised Land, and the implications of that.
Yep.
Okay. What do you got next?
And then 5 through 7, better priest, obviously.
Okay.
Priesthood in the law, according to Melchizedek. I even thought better than Melchizedek, but I mean, it doesn't say that. But and then let's see, what did I write?
So we went through chapter 7 there. What's after that?
So don't reject him.
Don't reject him. Okay.
And then the last two. This one I got muddy on, but
okay.
I think 8 through 10, better sacrifice, covenant. Okay. But it kind of washes into 11 through 13 as well.
Yeah.
So I struggled with breaking that up, but I think 8 through 10, sacrifice and covenant. So don't reject the only way to forgiveness.
Okay.
And then I pretty much have the kind of faith examples of faith followers.
Great.
And finish the race.
Great. Okay, that actually sounds very similar to what I have first on here. It's very much the same way that many have broken it down throughout generations. So what you pointed to here is you used a better revelation. Most would say Jesus is better than the angels or greater than the angels. Chapters 1 and 2. Chapters 3 through 4 then would become Jesus as the better Moses in Promised Land, as you noted, Scott. Chapters 5 through 7 would then become Jesus as a greater than the Levitical high priest. We have after the order of Melchizedek. As you said, this kind of gets muddy where you draw the next line. Many would draw it right here between 1031 and 1032 and say that chapter 8 through chapter 10, verse 31 is Jesus as a better sacrifice and covenant, and then primarily makes that switch to the next section, which is all about chapter 10, 32 through most of chapter 13, that Jesus is a better foundation and guarantor of faith. And that's why we see so many who are faithful, and he says, well, if you saw the faith in these people, shouldn't you be more faithful than they were? You have such a greater example to look to. And then, of course, we have our closing greetings and our benediction, or however you would like to summarize that. So, Scott, that's very similar to what many would see, and I think that's helpful. We get the pictures of all the ways that Jesus is greater in kind of a detailed fashion. That's very helpful to see that. All right? Anyone see it another way or have any other thoughts there? Okay. I will show you. This was one that I saw pretty well from before I started looking at what others had seen, and I found something helpful in it. That, of course, we have our intro and close. I would see the same thing. I would actually draw a line here at chapter 5 or at chapter 6 and verse 12, going into chapter 6 and verse 13. I see this message of Jesus as a greater mediator. Because when you think about angels, Moses, and Levitical high priests, what were they all doing? They were all mediating between humanity and God. They were all giving a message between man and God. So there's a collective whole there of Jesus being a greater mediator. And then you have, going into chapter 6:13, through the same division here, I would tie those together and say that, very similar to the one above, that Jesus is a greater covenant and access to God. Okay, and so we see that both in the use of the order of Melchizedek, we see it in the greater promises and covenant and ministry in chapter 8. We see Jesus' covenant sacrifice offering true sanctification in chapter 10. So we have all of this message of Jesus being a greater covenant and access to God. And then I would go through to the close and say Jesus is worthy of a greater faith. I think that's what it's pointing to there at the end. part of the reason I saw this breakdown was I felt like there were, among other times where Paul takes time to really kind of explain pieces of what he's talking about and what he really sees as application for the listeners in the book, I found there were 3 very specific messages that were at greater depth trying to help the Christians understand the points that he was making. And so the last of those sections in mind, so chapter 5, verse 11, you'll remember I made on my chart that he gives this extended admonishment of the listener to open your ears and mature your faith. So after having this discussion of Jesus as better than angels and better than Moses in the promised land, and I even would say, well, then he gives this reasoning of why you should see him as a greater mediator and how that should urge you to grow in your faith and not become stagnant. And then again, he does this in chapter 10, verse 19 through verse 31, where he does this extended encouragement to the listener to allow your faith to provide you confidence. And then finally, chapter 13 and verse 1 through verse 21, he has this message about honoring the greater things in the way we live, and goes through this application of what it looks like to live under this faith. And so really that helps underscore this message of Hebrews, where in chapter 5, verse 11, he's really asking the listener to say, all right, if you understand he's better than angels, Moses, and the Levitical high priest, then why is your faith not growing? Open your ears and grow your faith. And then makes his next point and concludes with, allow that faith that you're building as you look at him as a better covenant and a better access to God to provide you confidence to live according to his plan and according to what he provides. And then finally concluding, if you see all these other people of faith, then your faith should be producing a great life of service as well. So that was my take on that. Any questions on that? Any other thoughts there? All right, I told you I'd show you 3. Yes, Steve.
I was just going to say this is a good place to start with someone talking about that we're now in the New Testament and not in the Old Testament, because it wipes away a lot of the questions and ideas of are we still living under the Old Testament or not.
Yeah, it can. It can be a place to go to reference those things. One of the hard parts to just jump into Hebrews if they don't have a great amount of biblical understanding is that there's a lot of cross-references. And then to fill in do they even understand who Moses was? Do they even understand what the role of the angels were? Do they understand what a Levitical high priest is? So if they have some knowledge, but they're not understanding the value of Old and New Testament, this is a great book to go to. If they have no knowledge, I'd say there's probably need to see Jesus and God in a different light. It may be a little too much detail. But this is the beauty of the Bible, isn't it? There are so many places we can go to start depending on what knowledge people have and what they're wrestling with. And so that's one of the ideas of doing the chart is you see the big pictures and can go, oh, I can see how I can use this book. We can study this book and fill in these gaps. All right, I told you I had 3 charts that we could look at. In this one, this is actually going to be the one from David McClister's commentary, Let Us Draw Near. And in this one, he offers up these sections. He would say chapter 1, verse 1 through the end of chapter 2 is all about the superiority of the Son and of the revelation from God. So very similar to the first chart there, just not separating out the intro and talking a little bit about how Scott talked about it, the revelation of God. From there, he would actually go all the way out, or another short section, chapter 3 basically, through 4, verse 13. He would say this is the need for faithfulness to obtain rest. It's impressing on us the need for that faithfulness as a way to access the rest. And then goes all the way out to chapter 12, the end of chapter 11. So chapter 4 through chapter 11, he sees as one big section. And he summarizes it as the new, better order of things under the high priesthood of Jesus. Okay? From there, he sees another little section through chapter 12 by itself, talking about the need for faithfulness to obtain the promises. And then finally, he wraps up with our relationship with our brethren. And in some other phrasing he used, the need for us to see the superiority of this new brotherhood as sons of God. What do you make of that one? Sure. Gary.
All the first points made, the chapter 13 had some particular helpful instructions. So I guess you could say that has to do with our brethren. Some of them do, for sure.
Yeah, I think chapter 13 feels much more practical in the applications and instructions that he gives. It's much more pointed in how it affects our daily life. So that one feels like it stands out in some ways. So, and that would be this relationship with our brotherhood or amongst the people of God. If you're looking at this, hopefully you see what he points out as a structure that we talked about a lot in Daniel. He sees this as a big chiastic structure. So his first section, all about the superiority of the Son. Other commentators on that last section would be saying our need to be shown as a superior childhood of God. Okay, so you have Christ as the greater Son, and now we as the sons and daughters made greater than the ones of the old faith. Okay, so he would see those two pairing. You certainly see his next two sections all about a need for faithfulness, both to obtain rest and obtain the promises. So he sees those two as parallel. And then he says that makes the central section really focus on the new, better order of things under the high priesthood of Jesus. And so he's saying that's the thrust of Hebrews, is right there from chapter, basically 4:14 through the end of chapter 11. Okay? As I've said before, it's not about matching one of these. It's about you understanding what's in the book and being able to see how it fits together. So whatever your chart looks like, it's great. It's going to be helpful for you. Okay? Our challenge, I'm going to go ahead and move just to mine here. You got all my access right there, all the way across the top. I was going to ask you what your summaries were, but I forgot to add them in one at a time. So here's my chart. I would say that based on what I was looking at, I'm seeing the main message, that's the one up here in this bar here, that Jesus is the superior covenant mediator. That's Paul. That's the author's main argument throughout the book. Jesus is a better covenant mediator. That's not about application. That's his main argument. And then across the top, our application is Jesus is our access to God. Our faith should and can be stronger than anyone in the Old Testament because we have greater proofs. That's how I see Hebrews, but I'm interested. Let's start with his main point inside the box. What does your title say on your chart? What did you come up with? Ida's was better. That's it. Marta says that's it. Nice and simple. Any other thoughts? Any other ways of saying it? Aubriana.
I just have the perfection of Jesus and his covenant.
Great. Yeah, the perfection of Jesus and his covenant. Covenant. So yes, the perfection of it all, not just as a comparison to the Old Testament, but it is perfect in every way. So great. Any other ways you would say that? Miss Betty?
I say he takes away the first that he may establish the second,
Okay,
which is a better covenant. But
great.
That's in Hebrews 9, so.
Yeah, great. Yeah, excellent. Hebrews 9, you would offer there that he takes away the first to establish the second, and that is the better covenant. Chapter 10. Verse what? Verse 9. 10:9. Great. That's okay. All right. Any other ways that you summarize the chart at the top that you would like to offer? All right, then what about the application? What's your main takeaway from this? How does this affect us as Christians? That's going to be next to the title of Hebrews right at the top. That's my longer line on my chart. What's your main takeaway that you had on your chart? Why do I need to read about Jesus as the superior covenant mediator, or taking away the first to establish the second, the better covenant? Jesus, the perfect, bringing about the perfect covenant. Barry.
Jesus provides superior relationships.
Okay, so Jesus offers us a superior relationship, or offers superior relationships.
Both with God and with our fellow man.
Great, yeah. Yeah, but that through Jesus we can find better relationships both with God and fellow man, other Christians. Ida.
This isn't necessarily the message of Hebrews, but I just keep thinking that I hear echoes of Leviticus throughout this whole
Okay.
book. And as you said up there, Jesus is our access to God. In Leviticus, it told us how to have holiness so that we could come to the Lord. And of course, this is better. And I'm not dissing Leviticus, but it just seems like the fulfillment of all of that.
Great. Yeah, what we often overlook in Leviticus being a book of laws and feeling pretty boring and dry in its approach, Ida reminds us that it was meant for a purpose. It was meant to help bring us into relationship with God, to know who God was and how he saw everything. And that was highlighting that he gave us a Levitical priesthood to help keep us in line with those laws. And so we see that message very closely related here to Hebrews, and we'll see that as we go through. And so we'll ask Guy to keep ringing that bell for us as we go through and understand the Levitical laws that we're going to see, or the way that it is better than Leviticus. Steve.
Yeah, along with that, the sacrifice language, the priest used to go in, used to draw themselves near with a clean heart to try to speak with God, be with God, and then now it's shifted. Let us draw near with a true heart, in full assurance of faith, with our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience.
Yeah. So not only does Jesus offer a better high priesthood in that he goes in before God, but it offers us full access to go in as well, not just the priests. Although weren't we promised to be a nation of priests? So as we are his priests now, we have access, but we don't have to be the high priest. All priests have access to enter into that temple. That's a beautiful image we'll see a lot of as we go through the book of Hebrews. All right? Key words or phrases that you see down on the bottom left of your chart. What are key words or phrases that stand out to you in the book of Hebrews that we can help watch out for as we go through and study? Lisa? Yes, let us.
So let us beware, let us hold fast, let us make every effort. Most of these are in chapter 4.
Great. Yeah, there's a number of them there. Throughout the book, there's actually 12 times that the author uses that phrase, let us, and then fills in the blank somehow. Let us draw near. Let us come close. Let us prepare. Let us do this or that. So that is going to be something we want to watch out for. Which implies throughout the book, what is the author saying? Don't just read this as a technical knowledge of who Jesus is compared to the Old Covenant. We need to do something about it. We have to participate in it somehow. So it's really critical for us to see this let us imagery. Okay, what else? What other words? Karen? You have 9 words? I know, there's so many good ones.
Faithful, faith, high priest, rest, promise, sanctified, perfected, discipline, and do good.
Yeah. Okay. So faith or faithfulness, we'll see a lot of that. We see both high priest, but also just priest at different times. So some form of that high priest or priest. And you can say them again without the mic, just slow. Oh, yeah. Rest and promises. Those are 2 big words that we'll see throughout. Good. And then... Okay, you have this idea of sanctified and perfected. Both of those very similar in its meaning and understanding, but we'll watch for sanctified and perfected and disciplined and do good. Again, this discipline being we need to take action. It needs this message needs to impact us as we go through. Okay, what other words? Better. I said ring the bell about Leviticus, not about better. We'll work on that. No, thank you. Yes, better is certainly much greater. I mean, this language about in some way better or greater or larger or more perfect, more, all of that. That all kind of flows together. Any other words stand out to you? Forever. So we see this comparison of the temporary versus the forever of Jesus. Today. So some emphasis on the importance of action now, not years and years down the road or in another timeline. No, we got to take action now. What else? Gary?
Assemble together.
Assemble together. Yeah, we'll see some assembling. Again, this let us draw near, this gathering, this assembling, that it should draw us out of something and together in another way. That's going to be beautiful imagery we see. What else? Your will. Okay, so watching God's will, watching what this will is that develops, and any others? Steve.
Further explanation of the points by including for in front of it. So like for though by this time and stuff like that.
Okay. So kind of as an explanation of sorts, he says for this reason or for this or that other situation, this should be the conclusion that should have happened, but this needs to happen instead. So we see a cause and effect a lot in the text. Great. There's some big words that we haven't had yet. Belief, yeah. Belief also in belief and unbelief also in comparison and very closely related to this idea of faith throughout the text, but we can look at some of the nuance of those things, faith being and belief being there. I always like to challenge myself. This is something I think we looked at in Daniel maybe. We certainly looked at it in other settings that if you've studied with me since I've been here, I've talked about word clouds. The cool part is Blue Letter Bible online has a word cloud already prepared for every book of the Bible. So you don't have to go generate one. You don't have to go look it up other than to go to just type in Blue Letter Bible or BLB, the book you're looking at, and word cloud. And it'll be the first thing that generates. Here's the one for the book of Hebrews. Now keep in mind, they write the book in black. It is not used in the book, okay? But they write it in black so you remember what chart you're looking at. So ignore the word Hebrews, but as the word is larger, it is used more frequently throughout the book. So we need to see those words and pay attention to how they're used. So what words stand out to you that we haven't covered yet? And I'll let you just sit on that and make your list for a second, and then we'll talk about it. All right. What words are on there that are larger that maybe we didn't highlight? You go ahead, Elizabeth. Yeah, God might be in Hebrews. And so while we often gloss over that, it is not in every book of the Bible that God is used so predominantly and so repetitively. So the Lord, God, some version of that. And so Hebrews, we need to pay attention to God's role in this. As much as it is about Jesus, who is it also about? God. And I think that's profound. I think that should change the way we look at this book. Go ahead, Ida.
It's not the biggest word up there, but I find since. It's very interesting that is a word that is used a lot. So therefore, to me, we're talking about logical deduction.
Okay, yeah. So she's seeing this word since right in the middle of that highlighted section. That there is a cause and effect, or as a result of that, since that has happened, we need to do this, or since this is going to happen. So a cause and effect. Oh, is it the same word as therefore? Okay, so this might be from a different version, and they use since, and and you have therefore in the top right here. So you have that combination. That's some of the limiting factor of a word cloud. They go with actual word used, not the original word, so sometimes that overlap isn't as predominant. Tom, I'll get there. Brain.
Looking at the big words, I just can't help it. I see one faith, one God. You know, the idea of one faith, one God, one baptism. That's the one. The word "one" is the connecting.
Yep, right down
there.
here.
Yeah.
The word "one" is very predominant compared to a lot of the other words, and so one. That might cause us to stop and reflect when there's an emphasis on a singular form of something, that there is one. One covenant, one faith, one God. We'll look for these different things as we go through the text. Any others you see? There's one that stands out to me. Certainly, we've talked a lot about covenant, which surprisingly becomes a very small word, even though it's a great emphasis in the book. But you don't have a covenant without what? Blood. Blood seems to be used more than covenant, according to this word cloud. So watching for this idea of blood in the book of Hebrews, that'll be an interesting thing to consider as we go through. Tom.
Another one is the word "made."
Yeah, made,
Yeah.
or which also was right over here. Go ahead with,
Yeah, so that this is not just like a state of being, it's a transformative process.
Okay.
The faith is transforming.
Yeah, and what else was made according to, he was made a little lower than angels. There was power worked on him as well. There was a greater power at work than just Jesus, and we'll see what all was made and how that power exchange happened in the book of Hebrews. Aaron.
And apparently Hebrews talks a lot about things.
Yes.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, things. We'll see where that shows up. Lots of things, apparently, because there's a larger word there. Cool. So again, this is a good test of our observation skills, and maybe as we read through a text, we go, oh, yep, there's God's name, and we don't really give much consideration to how frequently his name is showing up or a reference to him. So a word cloud like this can really help us hone in where we might need to pay attention better through our study. Ms. Kay?
Well, how about Melchizedek?
Okay, yeah, I think I'd have to really look. He's on there somewhere. Where is he? Right side vertical. There he is. Right there, Melchizedek. So he's Again, surprisingly little compared to how important he is to the narrative. So sometimes these words are not, the point in doing these key words is not to always just see the main points. Clearly, Melchizedek is a main point of Hebrews, but it is to uncover other words that we might skim over that have a great impact to the narrative. So Melchizedek's there as well, yes.
And also Abraham.
Yes, again, Abraham, Moses, Melchizedek, all these other names that are really important for us to know and see in the text. Maybe they don't show up frequently, but they are important, and we'll look at all of that. All right, last part of our chart, and we're doing well on time. This is looking good. What are your key verses? What verses do you think? It could be a single one, a small gathering of verses. There might be 2 or 3 that you go, hey, if I could come back to Hebrews and I'm going to tell someone about the book, I'm going to jump to these 2 or 3 verses to help me explain what this book is all about. Miss Kay is going to start us off here. Tom?
I have chapter 4, verse 12 and 13.
Okay, chapter 4, verse 12 and 13. I'll read that for us. Chapter 4, verse 12. Wrong chapter. Chapter 4, verse 12. For the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of soul and of spirit, of joints and of marrow, and discerning the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And no creature is hidden from his sight, but all are naked and exposed to the eyes of him whom we must give account. All right, so it's drawing us into account there, showing the need for Hebrews to impact us. We're going to have Lisa has a word or a verse here.
I just went a step further than Mom. 4:14 through 16. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast to our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in every way as we are, yet without sin. Therefore, let us approach the throne of grace with boldness, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in the time of need.
Great. Yeah, chapter 4 there, that whole section, I mean, and as you often find going and finding your key verse, sometimes you just want to keep expanding to grab the whole idea. If we were to really whittle that section 11 through 16 down, we saw 11 through 13 with 11 through 12 with Miss Kay, 14 through 16 with Lisa. I just would simply use chapter 4 and verse 14, since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession. Again, you can come to both sides of that and start to build out the greater message. But if we can remember in our heads, chapter 4, verse 14, that becomes a key verse in Hebrews. Okay, what else? What others might you use? Gary?
Chapter 2, verse 1.
Chapter 2, verse 1. Therefore, we must pay much closer attention to what we have heard, lest we drift away from it. Okay, again, emphasizing the importance of the message that is being talked about. Great. So that's leaning more towards the application side, whereas these others, in some ways, are pointing to the technical narrative that is being laid out in Hebrews about how Jesus is greater or much more. So both sides of that are very valuable. Good on that one. Ms. Kay.
10, 9 through 10.
10, 9 through 10. There we have, let's see here. Then he added, behold, I have come to do your will. He does away with the first in order to establish the second. And by that will we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. Yeah, a great key piece of the discussion that is made throughout the book of Hebrews. Miss Betty. You have 2. Okay, so 11.
6 is, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him.
Yeah, 11:6 is a very, very well-known quote. Without faith is it impossible to please him. You also mentioned 11:1. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Often used as a very clear definition from Scripture of what it means to have faith, or what faith looks like. And when we get back to that detail, I think we'll spend some time really fleshing that out, helping us to put more concepts behind that. Miss Kay's got more for us. She's going to quote the whole of Hebrews before we're done.
13:8.
13:8. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. And that is a foundational truth that we need to find great joy in. So yes, very good. Lisa. 12:1 and 2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Beautiful, beautiful piece of the discussion in Hebrews. Any others? 10:22. Great. Chapter 10, verse 22 says, let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith, with our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. Yeah, absolutely. Drawing near. 8:6. All right. Chapter 8, verse 6. But as it is, Christ has obtained a ministry that is much more excellent than the old, as the covenant he mediates is better, since it is enacted on better promises. I mean, that cuts to the heart of it. Very good. Appreciate that. Going back to Aaron's, I would go one verse further, and really this is that struggle again. 10:19 through 25, you really can't go wrong in that section. The one that many would, and so 19 through 23 I have up on the board here, but verse 23 there, I think being a critical one. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. Because what we're seeing throughout the book of Hebrews is God's faithfulness. This goes back to the word cloud. God is acting in all of this. And he's doing that through Jesus, bring about a better Moses, better, something greater than angels, something greater than Moses, something greater than Abraham, someone greater. And so if we have that, then let us hold fast to our confession of hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. God is faithful in all of this. All right, Ms. Kay, one last one, and then we'll wrap up our time together. You can just tell me what it is. 1 and 2. I mean, as we talked about, and we see on our chart, 1 and 2 becomes almost the thesis statement for the whole of the book. So long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world. All right. And that is where we will pick up next week, studying Hebrews chapter 1, beginning in verse 1. Appreciate your comments and your observations of the text and discerning of the text well. We'll jump into the more enjoyable part for many of you. I know the chart is not always the most fun, but I think for Hebrews, it's a really beautiful overview. So thank you for all that you've done in that.